I paid $300 for a man at the county auction, and when he walked through my door 6 months later, with blood on his shirt and a bullet scar across his jaw, I realized I'd bought more than just another ranch hand. The wanted poster in his saddlebag had my maiden name written in the corner, in my father's handwriting. The October wind carried dust through the gaps in Martha Caldwell's cabin walls, settling on the wooden table where she counted coins for the third time that week. $42. Not enough for winter supplies, barely enough for another month of lamp oil. The fire in her stone hearth crackled low, casting shadows that danced across the rough-hewn walls of her isolated homestead. Outside, a horse snorted. Martha's hand moved instinctively to the shotgun propped against her chair. No visitors came this far into the Badlands without reason, and most reasons weren't good. She moved to the window, peering through the gap in her curtains. A lone rider sat motionless on a paint horse, his silhouette sharp against the dying light. "Ma'am." His voice carried across the yard, rough but not threatening. "I believe you own my papers." Martha's breath caught. She knew that voice, though she'd heard it only once before. 6 months ago at the county auction house when Sheriff Briggs had put him on the block with the other debtors and drifters. She'd bid on him like livestock, needing hands for her failing ranch and having no money to pay wages. She opened the door slowly. The man hadn't dismounted. His face was thinner than she remembered, marked now by a fresh scar that ran from his left ear to the corner of his mouth. Dried blood stained his collar. "Jake Morrison," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "You ran." "Yes, ma'am." 3 days after I bought your contract. Took my best mare," Jake nodded toward the paint horse. "Brought her back. With interest." He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a leather pouch that clinked with coin. "You're 300, plus another 200 for the horse and the time." Martha stepped onto her porch, the wooden boards creaking under her boots. "Where'd you get that kind of money?" "Bounty work." "On who?" Jake's jaw tightened. "Men who deserved it." The wind picked up, and Martha caught sight of something else protruding from his saddlebag, the corner of a folded paper. Yellow and weathered, her heart started beating faster. "What else you carrying in there?" Jake's hand moved to cover the saddlebag, but it was too late. Martha had seen enough wanted posters in her time to recognize one. "Nothing that concerns you, ma'am. Everything concerns me when it's on my land." She raised the shotgun slightly, not pointing it at him, but making it clear she could. "Show me." For a long moment, they stared at each other across the dusty yard. The paint horse shifted restlessly. Finally, Jake reached into the bag and pulled out a folded poster. He held it out to her. Martha walked down the porch steps, close enough to take the paper but far enough to swing the shotgun if needed. When she unfolded it, her world tilted. The face staring back at her was younger, clean-shaven, but unmistakably familiar. "Wanted, dead or alive, Jack Morrison, murder, $500 reward." But it wasn't the amount that made her hands shake. It was the signature at the bottom, authorizing the bounty. "Judge Thomas Hartwell," she read aloud. "Your father," Jake said quietly. Martha looked up at him. "You knew? At the auction. You knew who I was?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you came back anyway." Jake finally dismounted, moving slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Had some things to tell you about your father. About what really happened in Tombstone." The firelight from her cabin flickered across his face, highlighting the exhaustion in his eyes. Martha noticed other details now, the careful way he moved his left arm, the dust ground deep into his clothes, the hollow look of a man who hadn't slept properly in weeks. "You're hurt," she said. "Some. Who's after you?" "Your father's men. Maybe others by now." Martha felt something cold settle in her stomach. "They know you're here?" "Not yet, but they will." She looked at the wanted poster again, then at Jake, then at the horizon where the last light was fading into purple darkness. Her father, the man who'd raised her after her mother died, who'd taught her to read and cipher, who'd kissed her forehead before sending her west to marry a rancher she'd never met. A rancher who'd died of fever 2 weeks after their wedding, leaving her alone with nothing but 40 acres of hard ground and a cabin that leaked when it rained. "What really happened in Tombstone?" she asked. Jake stepped closer, and in the growing darkness, She could see something in his expression that made her chest tighten. Not guilt, not shame, grief. Your father killed my brother, Jake said. Shot him in the back during a card game. Called it self-defense, but there were witnesses who saw different. The shotgun suddenly felt heavy in Martha's hands. That's not. My father's a judge. He wouldn't. Your father's a lot of things. Jake's voice was gentle but firm. I came back to tell you the truth before someone else put a bullet in me. You deserve to know what kind of man raised you. Behind them, the paint horse snorted again, ears pricked toward the eastern horizon. In the distance, barely visible against the stars, dust clouds rose from the desert floor. Riders. Coming fast. How long do we have? Martha asked. Jake squinted into the darkness. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Martha looked at her cabin, at the coins scattered on her table, at the life she'd built from nothing in this harsh place. Then she looked at Jake Morrison, the outlaw she'd bought and who'd returned with secrets that could destroy everything she thought she knew. Can you prove it? She asked. About my father? Jake nodded toward his saddlebag. Letters, written in his hand, details only the real killer would know. The dust clouds were closer now. Martha could hear the faint thunder of hoofbeats carried on the wind. She made her choice. Get inside, she said, lowering the shotgun. And Jake? Yes, ma'am? Whatever my father did, whatever you did, it ends here, tonight. We figure out the truth together or we die together. But no more running. Jake looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then he nodded and reached for his saddlebag. Yes, ma'am, he said. And for the first time since he'd ridden up, Martha thought she heard something other than resignation in his voice. Hope.